Oh, and we're live.
Are we?
Yeah,
Look at all those
there's look at so many bases.
Wow.
Oh, some would say too many, not us though.
No. Bases.
We would say actually not enough bases.
No bases jokes.
Yeah.
No,
No.
hold up and bases.
No, we're not going to do those.
We're not going
Yeah.
to say that.
No. No free basin jokes. Yeah, there they are. Although I can't see comments, or can I?
Yeah. In that direction?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Maybe I can. Maybe I.
You
Oh,
want me to-
nope. I think I might be able to. Somebody comment if you can hear. Can you hear? How's the sound? Check 1, 2. Check.
I'm going to take my mask off,
Check.
Ryan.
Okay. I'll put yours on. Here, give it to me.
Well, I was borrowing this one.
2D or not 2D?
2D or not 2D?
That is the question. We just keep saying it over and over again.
It's going to be, eventually it will catch on.
Yep. 2D or not 2D?
All right.
That is the question.
Okay, so this is going to be like a shorter, like this is Wednesday Wisdom, but on Monday.
It is.
I'm gonna take
It's
this mask off. And no
yes.
Ryan's behind the camera.
Yeah. Monday mental. Clear. Awesome. Thanks, Chad. He can hear us. Clear.
You can hear us.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Chad. Well, I'm going to shut my phone off since you're going to be the camera guy, and I'll let you do comments.
I will do
I'll
comments.
let you do comments.
Fantastic. We get some thumbs up.
Oh, I should have grabbed that other bass bell with the other engraving.
Yeah, shoulda, but didn't.
That's
So here we are. Oh, hey, Matt's watching. All right.
We do have other basses. Matt Budd?
Yep, Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Good morning.
Morning, Matt.
What do you think, Ryan? When should we start?
Here in a little bit. I think let me just kind of scan around the room, see. You can see all the bases. So many bases. Never too many. That's right. I agree, Greg. Never too many bases.
Wow, a lot of bases.
A lot.
Okay.
Let's see. Here's the boom mic. Okay.
Okay. I'm not going to move again with my mask off. I'm in my COVID circle.
That's right.
I was going to go to New York last weekend, so I got tested the day before I left.
Did you?
So I just got a result back over the weekend negative.
So you're negative?
So I'm negative. So
I'm negative. Okay, well that's good.
We can make out.
Yeah. All right.
So should we do this?
I think so. I
Okay,
think
let's start.
Wednesday Wisdom on a Monday.
Wow, I'm usually introducing someone. I'm going to introduce myself.
Okay.
All right, cool. Hey, good morning, everybody. This is we're going to talk about basses today, and we've been doing some cool stuff in the Sax Pro Shop for a while now with basses, and I think we got to something that we like and something that we're happy with, and that we want to share with you. And so let's get started. I guess oh, by the way, I'm Curt Ryan, and we're MusicMedic.com. If you don't know that. So that's the introduction. So basses.
There's the sign right there.
Oh yeah, that's the music.
Yeah.
So basses have this problem. The bigger the instrument, the bigger the problem of the 2-octave vent thing is. Like we all know that if an instrument had, well, most people are aware of the whole thing where it's like if you had a vent, an octave vent, and an octave vent is like this, the little hole right there. Mm-hmm. Octave vent is that little hole, and we all know that if there were 12 octave vents, that we would have, one for each note, and it would be really super cool. And it would make each note work really well. Tiny little instruments like a sopranino, that probably could get away with one. The baritone, the saxophone, it really could use 3. The bass could use 3 or 4. So that is part of the reason why basses don't play low D. There's another mysterious reason, which I don't quite understand, because even if you overblow a D on the bass, it doesn't quite work. So it's really kind of tricky. Basses, the low D on the bass really needs its own octave vent. And so that's what we set out to do, is we started this project, and here's the one. Can I show this, Ryan? So we set out this project, and this is the top joint. Can you see this? This is this part, the top joint of a bass, and we set out on this project to find out where the proper octave vents would be, right? And not so much to find one for each note, but to make one that would make the D play well. Everybody that plays the bass knows the problem of D. It's very emotional when you play bass. Every time you go to play D, it doesn't quite work, and sometimes it cacks. and it's unnerving to play a bass to play that D. And so a lot of times people will use a fingering, like they'll leave the first finger off a D, they'll play 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the octave key, and hit the palm D key, and then let it speak that way. So our goal was to make a bass that you could play with normal fingerings. So
it's pretty out there. That's a pretty out there. Make the bass play with normal fingering.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's pretty out there.
So where we kind of started a long time ago is partly on my bass. So let me show you what I did on my bass. Can I put it here, Ryan, when you see it?
Yep.
Okay, so on my bass, what I've done, and this is an old con bass, is you see these 3 octave vents? So I built new keys. I have the old keys here to prove that I didn't ruin my keys.
They're here somewhere. I've seen them.
You saw them? Well, let's not lose them because I got to put them back on. But I just quickly built these keys so that I could drill holes into the pad cups and put vents on there. And what that allows me to do, it allows me to close one up with tape and then play that and see how these two work. Or maybe close these two up and see how, well actually these two, because there's the original one isn't around here on the back. And it makes me cool at parties.
Gotta say, yeah, you've got 4.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
and
4 octave pads.
So trying out the different ones is cool. And then also seeing what it does when you close up the original one and play one or more of these guys here. So this gives a really nice way to start to figure out what you want to do. And here is the problem. When you have a vent that's working for the note D, so that you can play D, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and your octave key, when you have that vent that works, the problem is that vent is going to be used from the note D all the way up to the note G sharp, and then it switches at A, right? So the problem is, even though it works here, when you get up to G sharp, it doesn't work. So let me show you quick. I'll just play it right on this stand. Okay, so there it is, the mighty bass. If I play a D on this bass, now I have all these crazy octave vents open. It really works. And if I try to lip it down and get like the lower D to come out, doesn't matter what I do, this bass is going to play a D because it's got all those octave vents that are ready to just play D. The worst one is right on the back here. You can't see it. That's the original. The better ones are up here. And even if I start to cover some of these, it'll still play a really nice D until I cover all of them and leave the original, and then the D won't speak as well. But let me just go up, see if I can. That's with all those vents open. That's a lot of work to get that G. And the problem there is that these vents are open, right? So now the original vent is open, but I have these other ones open. So here's the real problem. You can't just add more octave vents to the mechanism so that D has more octave vents, because then G is going to have more octave vents, and they're going to be in the wrong direction. There's a place for the octave, there's a range of notes, and there's a place for the vent, and they put it in somewhere in the middle. But if you start putting vents up here, or if you start putting vents down here, when you play D, it's going to work because there's these vents down here. But once you get up to A or G, it's really not going to work because you have these vents down here in the wrong place. So here it is again. And it doesn't work for G, right? It really doesn't work for G. Okay, so it would have been great if it worked for G, because then we could have just connected another vent, but we can't do that. We would need a whole third octave mechanism, an automatic third octave mechanism. So along comes this Chinese bass, that plays pretty good. And we bought 3 of them in the Sax Pro Shop. And we started to mess with them, and that is when we started to do this test. And we start to find out how many octave vents, or where would the octave vents for each go. And what we did was, we ended up making a 4-octave mechanism bass. So I had 4 independent octave keys. It changed at D to E, it changed. And then you'd have one open for F, or E, F, G, A, it changed at A like a normal in saxophone. And then when you got up to B, C, C sharp, when you played C sharp, it changed and you had one vent just for the palm keys. That was cool, but it was too cumbersome. And it required this many keys.
We had to do it by weight.
Wow.
Yeah, we had to measure by weight.
These are the 4 octave keys. Like, let me see. There's a lot of really awkward shapes. Look at this one. There's a bunch of these. There's a lot of really awkward shaped keys, and we got the 4-octave mechanism to work, but it didn't quite work great. So we decided that 3 was the way to go. We just need something to make the D play. So we wanted to put another octave mechanism on there. So before I show you the octave mechanism we made, let me just tell you kind of how an octave mechanism works, or at least in my mind, how an octave mechanism works. So you got like, let's call this an octave mechanism. And you got like this one button that you push. And when you push this button, one of these 2 things is going to happen. When you play a normal saxophone, you push your octave key, and one of these 2 things is going to happen. It's either going to be the body octave or the neck octave. And it goes just like this. So, push this button, one of these things is going to happen. If you held these down and pushed this button, the mechanism would bend and maybe break. So it's definitely that you push this button and one of these things is going to happen. Now, what you can do is you could stack another octave mechanism on top. Now check this out. You push this button, and either this is going to happen, it's going to open a vent, or it's going to do this other thing, and it's going to trigger this second mechanism where one of these 2 things is going to happen. So, with 1 octave mechanism, you get 2 octave vents. With 2 octave mechanisms, you get 1, 2, 3 octave vents, and 2 triggers. You get a trigger here, and the transfer trigger here. So what does it look like with all these mechanisms stacked up? It must be crazy. It's not that crazy. Here. So we got this guy. Okay, let's see. See if I can show this, Ryan.
There we are. That's it.
So here it is. Here is a secondary. Here's one rocker mechanism. And then look back in here, another rocker octave mechanism. It's just like I showed you with my hands, but they're just not stacked up. They're just set side by side. So you got 1 rocker mechanism here, you got 1 rocker mechanism here. Now these aren't normal mechanisms. These are the kind, we put the Teflon ball, expanding Teflon balls on both sides to really take up the play. Because when you have this kind of complex mechanism, a lot of key play there's a lot of moving parts, so key play continues and it all adds up. So here's how it goes. Can you see that mechanism, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to switch from, I'll switch from G to A. Here's G to A. Here's your normal bass octave mechanism. Can you see that? When you play a G, or when you move up, this one opens. This is the body octave. See that this is the bass, and look, this is the body. This is actually lower on the instrument. It's coming up towards the neck, and now it's higher on the instrument. So even though this one looks higher, this is the body octave, and this is the neck octave, as we know them. And here I'm switching from G to A. Now look at this guy up here. This is the magical D key. So when I play a D with octave key, that guy's going to open. Did you see that? Now I'm going to switch from D to E. Now I'm switching from D to E. And when I switch from D to E, these 2 switch. If I switched from A, which is here, to D, these 2 are going to switch. See that? See how they switch? So this one closes, and this one opens, this one opens, this one closes. If I'm just playing around, they're just going to do this thing where they work magically and you don't have to worry about it. To do that took a fair amount of work. We had to rebuild all this octave mechanism, make all this key work, get all the throws, and then we had to tell the instrument that you're playing a D down on the bottom. So what does that mean when you're playing? We had to put a trigger down here onto the D key that travels up the instrument. And the way we did that is we mounted it completely on this
close guard.
This close guard right here. Yep. And it mounts right on there, and then it comes up. It comes up the body, it transfers over somewhere in here, and it travels all the way up the other side. And basically what it does is it allows you to play a D without having any issue. So let's see what that sounds like and feels like. Let me go between D and E. Maybe you could show this mechanism, Brian. Let me see if I can't turn this.
There we go.
There we go. Let me go between. Can you see all three of these, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's D and E. That
here and up here.
That is that's G and A. Here's a C scale starting from C2 and going down to C, octave C to the second C. And there it is. When you play a D, now this one opens and that makes the D come right out. So when you play some music, I'll play a little bit of this Bach I have here for you, a tiny bit. When you play music, it just kind of works. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to do an alternate fingering for D, and I feel like our little project is a success. I'm just going to play a couple lines of this suite number 2. Okay, that second note is D. That second note is that D that we're trying to get to speak. So there it is. It can't make me play better, but it definitely lets the D work. And when I'm playing it, I feel like I don't have to think about D anymore. I just play it, and the D comes out, and it's not an issue. Whereas normally when I'm playing a bass saxophone, every time I come to a D, I have a little bit of a nervous panic. And then the other nice thing is, we built some of these with 2 octave vents, where, like I showed you on my bass, where the octave vent that we put on this opens with the original one. And that works, but the problem is when you get to a G sharp and you're really trying to give it some power, it cacks. And so you get this really anxious feeling about G sharp. It's just not acceptable. It's close to working, but it's not acceptable. So we needed this complete 3-octave mechanism. So what we did is we built it on 2 basses. One of them is a prototype. The other is kind of a prototype that we're going to keep here. We're gonna produce these keys in our machine shop, and Ryan, our trusty cameraman, is going to put these keys onto the bass. So we have a few of these basses ordered, and we will be selling a bass saxophone that plays D.
Finally
Happened. So we're also selling a prototype. So I'm not. What did we come to?
11,000
for the prototype, and that's in its current
prototyping working stage.
Yeah, like it works. That would be this one, right?
That would be
that would be this one.
Yeah.
That would be this one. But see, this one doesn't have the fancy engraving that one has, and this is lacquered. But there's a lot of scarring from the work that we did. The work is beautiful, but these keys were built by Jeff Massa, our former general manager. So. But there's a lot of scarring from the work that he did here, and we didn't build this to sell it as a bare instrument, but here it is. If someone wanted it, there's no more learning to do on this. Just send it up. We're gonna send if no one buys it, we're gonna send this to John Utek, right?
Yep.
Ryan?
Yep. Our lacquer guy.
Ryan will engrave the bell,
right,
and then we'll send it to John Utek. John will lacquer the whole thing. And then we will sell it.
That's right.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Cool, there it is. That's the, I guess maybe in the future, the Wilmington bass.
The Wilmington bass.
And,
the Uber bass.
And that's our 3-octave mechanism.
Fantastic. All right.
Cool.
I think that's it.
All right, great.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks for watching.
All right. See you on Wednesday, I guess.
See you on Wednesday.
Wednesday, and then Friday again.
Bye-bye.
All right.